Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our conversation with Indiana producer Woody Nichols and Indiana Technical Assistant Specialist Hans Schmitz. I'm Olivia Cayuet, the Assistant Director of Education with the University of Missouri Center for Regenerative Agriculture. My colleagues Odine Alvarez and Shannon Moeller with the Soil Health Institute are also on the call providing technical support. The three of us support the education component of Farmers for Soil Health. The purpose of today's webinar is to have a conversation and learn from Woody's experiences integrating row crops, cover crops, and livestock into a diversified farm operation, and to learn insights from Hans on conservation adoption, technical assistance resources, and opportunities for producers interested in implementing cover crops and other soil health practices. Today's webinar is supported by Farmers for Soil Health, or FSH. The initiative is one of several USDA-funded Advancing Markets for Producers projects. FSH is a collaboration among commodity organizations, the United Soybean Board, the National Corn Growers Association, and the National Pork Board, with a shared goal to increase cover crop adoption. Through this project, farmers, whether new to cover crops or already experienced, may be eligible for financial incentives. State-level commodity organizations and conservation professionals work across 20 states, from the Dakotas to the East Coast, to provide local technical assistance and outreach. Registration is now open for fall 2026 cover crop incentive payments of $35 per acre for eligible cover crop plantings, with an August 31st deadline to begin the enrollment process. To learn more about eligibility requirements and to start your enrollment process, you can visit farmersforsoilhealth.com/enrollment. FSH also offers a wide range of educational resources and tools to support your cover crop journey. To explore these resources and learn more about the initiative, you can visit farmersforsoilhealth.com. Lastly, a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. This presentation is being recorded and an email will be sent with a link to the recording, which will be posted on the Soil Health Institute's YouTube channel. The panel discussion and Q&A will be moderated by Shannon. As questions come up, please enter them in the Q&A box. You can also upvote questions you'd like us to prioritize. If you experience any technical issues, please use the chat to message the webinar co-hosts, and we'll do our best to assist you. If you'd like to enable captions, you can click the three dots on your toolbar and select captions. Finally, please stay until the end for information on Certified Crop Advisor continuing education units available for attending this webinar. With that, I'm excited to welcome our panelists, Woody Nichols and Hans Schmitz. I'll pass it over to Shannon to get us started.
Thanks, Olivia, and good morning, everyone. I did want to reiterate that we are hoping that this is going to be just really an open discussion today amongst all of us, particularly Hans and Woody. So please do add your own questions. We'll start off with a few here, but we are hoping to go ahead and answer whatever questions you have for today. I am going to pass it over right now for Hans to introduce himself, and then Woody will introduce himself as well. We have no not a structured time limit on this, so tell us whatever you want about your background, your own farming operations, how you got into it, and a little tidbit about yourself. Kind of just whatever you feel like telling us, Hans.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. My name is Hans Schmitz, Technical Assistant Specialist for the Indiana Agriculture Nutrient Alliance and the State Representative for Farmers for Soil Health. I grew up on a dairy farm, and this is going to come out at some point. Woody and I first met while we were at Purdue in college, living in Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity, and hit it off pretty well. I did grow up on a dairy farm. I do farm in Posey County, Indiana, which is the far southwest corner of the state. So it's good to have Woody on to represent the central part of the state. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, like everyone said, I'm Woody Nichols. live in Frankfort, Indiana, or outside of Frankfort, Indiana. I am a first generation row crop farmer. Like Hans said, graduated from Purdue in 2009. Actually have a degree in animal science. Like he said, was an Alpha Gamma Rho, had a unique college experience. I was actually Purdue Pete. I was the mascot there. Had a different college experience than most. I was actually a bouncer at Harry's, which is the watering hole there. So I pretty much knew everybody on campus one way or the other. Got along great. Graduated from Purdue. Went into seed sales for 8 or 9 years directly out of college. Established a farm about 30 miles south of where I grew up. I grew up in Delphi, Indiana. My family raised show pigs. We had 100 to 150 sows. Dad was very active in judging across the country. And he came down to school one weekend and asked if I wanted to come home and raise show pigs. I said I'd rather kind of grow the cattle deals. So the entire footprint of our farm was about 20 acres growing up. Did need a lot of ground. So my first farm purchase out of college was more than double that. And we've grown down here. Grew the cattle operation out of college to over 100 cows in pastures in about 3 or 4 counties. So did a lot of the show cattle deal, chased them, raised show stock, seed stock. We're in sales all over the country. Get married in 2013 to my wife, Kayla, and she came back and was kind of helping with kind of everything while I was still actively involved in the seed deal. We started a ag supply deal we call Prairie View Ag Supply in 2013. Actually, the week we got married, went on our honeymoon, came back. I bought the 40 next to us. We started Prairie View and built a show barn all in that same week. So it was a busy week. We've taken that and grown Prairie View as together to we've had as high as 4 full-time staff. We do feed and show supplies, catering to the 4-H and show industry. We have Kayla operates our e-commerce website, and she ships all over the country every day, different show supplies and supplements and feeds. So we currently raise cattle and goats. We got into the show goat deal 6 or 7 years ago, kind of on a fluke, and have grown that to be a fairly nationally competitive show goat herd. We still operate Prairie View, still run cows, and as you can see on the photo on the screen, that's kind of our harvest crew. The two on either end are what we really do it for. That's Sadie and Sage. They are 9 and 10. Sadie's got her 11th birthday this weekend, so they really enjoy showing pigs. So in college, I didn't want to raise show pigs, and I'm 40, and now we're raising show pigs again. So that's kind of our initial background. In 2021, I believe it was, I was in John Deere getting an auger bit we were building fence, and I needed a new auger bit for my fence building rig, and standing in line at the parts counter, and the gentleman in the wide brim hat and I were standing in line just kind of shooting the breeze. It's Gary Gangwer. I've known him. I mean, I knew who he was from way back in the day. We just start shooting the breeze, and he's been in the insurance industry and built his farm over the years. And he said, "Are you row crop farming?" I said, "No, I was in seed and I'm doing this now, but I'm, didn't come from a farming background. So it's kind of hard to get into." And he says, "Well, why aren't you taking over my farm?" I told him I was just waiting for him to ask me. So that was in probably August of 2021. And he gave me his card, kind of as a joke. 2 or 3 days later, I called him and I said, "Hey, if you're being serious, I'm in." He said, "Well, why don't you come over this weekend and we'll talk?" So that was Saturday of Labor Day weekend. I drive over, never been to his place before. I mean, we knew who each other were, but didn't really know each other. We jumped in the pickup and started driving around looking at fields, and we hit it off pretty well. And we were kind of going back and forth on how he farms and what he does, and didn't have any kids or stepkids or anybody that was interested in the farm. And I said, I think this could work, but I'm not interested in being a hired hand. So if we're even gonna start doing this, then this isn't something I'm gonna just dabble in to help. I've got way too much going on for that. But we both decided that the fall of 21, I was gonna help him harvest that crop and make sure that we weren't gonna kill each other, and that we could get along with each other and respect each other's style of work. We hit it off great. I mean, got along perfect. I hadn't drove a semi on the highway ever. So day one of cutting beans, he says, okay, haul this 30 miles to the elevator. So my body was sore from being tense and nervous for days after that. But we made it there and got through the process. And December 1st of 2022, we decided that we were going to move forward with it. And starting right out the gate, we operate together, but separate entities. And we structured a plan to where we would farm together, but separately. I would take over basically all of the management decisions, and he would be involved as kind of oversee, but I took over the marketing, the purchasing, the strategy, everything. And then we structured a program to where I purchase existing equipment on an annual basis to both help with his tax strategy going out and my financial planning coming in, to where I didn't have to go and get a loan for all the equipment. And we operate the same acres on different shares. Originally, we started 50-50. Every acre we farmed, he had half the inputs and got half the grain, and I did as well. He could market and take checks and do whatever fit best for his strategy, and I could do for ours. And we've got the fourth crop in the ground right now, and we've adjusted some acre splits. And as we've grown, we're adjusting as we go. And I'm buying the existing equipment that we started with, and I've purchased several pieces that we needed to help us move in the direction that we chose to go. And I mean, it's been great. Everything's worked good. He's had a significantly reduced stress load, and he still gets to drive the tractors when he wants to. He does a lot of the landlord, has a lot of the relationships with the landlords. They're obviously all know what's going on and happy with it, but he can still be a farmer without having the stress and the worries of the day-to-day operations. And there's a lot of rabbit holes we can go down in that brief synopsis.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Woody, for that. And I don't see any questions from our audience yet, so I'm going to start with a couple basic ones that came up as you were talking. I'm wondering what crops you grow and how has that changed from your partnership with this older farmer who's retiring. I'm curious if you are still growing what he grew, or if you're managing, has the management changed in the last few years as you've started doing your ideas for management?
So right out the gate, the first change that I made, we're located basically between Purdue University at Lafayette and Indianapolis. We're in that kind of the north central Indiana. We have the opportunity to have several different marketing avenues, with having an ADM crush plant in Frankfurt, a Cargill crush plant in Lafayette. We have Primient, which is they make a lot of like high fructose corn syrup, which would be Tate and Lyle, and it's been several different names. And then we have another Primient plant on the north side of Lafayette that has specialty capabilities, where they'll do waxy corn and non-GMO corn. That was the first change for our first coming right out the gate. Is I felt like we didn't have we didn't have the storage or the capacity to be able to compete in this area for acres. So I wanted to try to optimize what we were able to do with the bushels that we grew. So right away we transitioned and went to non-GMO corn. So that was the first change, and we were able to get into a contract program with Primient, or the Primient North plant. Great people to work with there. So we grow, whether we can store it or not, anything that goes through our grain system for purity issues, we grow non-GMO corn, and then we can deliver that for a small premium. And every bushel that we grow has worked out to where they'll take whatever we're able to hold, and then we can get some early bushels delivered as well. On the bean side, ADM has the Plenish program. We've not gotten into that. We actually, for cash flow and for safety, we actually just haul all of our beans in the fall to either Cargill, Lafayette, or Frankfurt primarily. So we don't store any beans. We just grow the enlist beans. Water hemp is a huge problem around here, and weed control is something that's been a struggle. So up until recently, the Plenish program has not had the same chemical control opportunities that we needed to be able to keep clean fields. We only run one planter, and we run 30-inch beans. So with the later canopy, we need to have the ability for chemical weed control in that.
Got it. Thank you. And let me see. I'm just double checking. You kind of talked to us about how you became a first generation farmer, so I think that that's a great thing. And then I have another question. I want to direct this one to Hans, and then we'll come back about your farming operation. Hans, we know that the Nichols use cover crops. And I'm curious as to being a technical advisor and having many farmers that you work with. What are some of the most common questions that you get from producers who are considering using cover crops? And what are some of the things that separate a farmer who try it or a farmer who stick with it? And then we'll get into, I thought this would be a good question to transition into talking about how Woody uses cover crops and how that's a part of their business as well.
Sure. So Indiana is a fairly unique state in that cover crops have been around for quite some time, and the adoption around the state is relatively ahead of some other states. So a lot of the farmers that I meet with have experience with cover crops in the past. Um, Wherein they no longer use cover crops, it's because of some kind of failure. Let's say an oat radish mix went out during a drought, never came up and frosted out when, you were half an inch germinated. That's happened on our operation personally. And that was a setback, but we've kept at it. Cereal rye, I think, is a pretty good natural type of cover crop to put ahead of soybean planting. Soybeans will take cover crops and their existence, if you have issues with terminations, a whole lot easier than corn will. I think a lot of producers around the state are trying to figure out what do you plant ahead of corn? And that is a common question. Some producers that I met with have found that barley doesn't have quite the same negative effect as a cereal rye or wheat does going into a corn crop, and they believe that that's the way to go. Some producers are starting to dabble in mixes a little bit more, and particularly for organic acres with cover crops in the state of Indiana, I've found that the mixes and the success of the farming operation relies a whole lot more on cover crops for weed suppression in particular. So, to sum that up, the questions that I get are, what should I plant? Um, and then specific questions dealing with issues around termination and or the following cash crop. And I know you had like a three-part question, and I only answered the first part, but I forgot the other two parts, so that's great.
You covered it a little bit, but what separates farmers who try it and farmers who kind of stick with a practice? such as in this case cover crops, but any new practice, what you mentioned, like some farmer might have a cover crop failure. What
Yeah.
makes some farmers quit cover crops after that and others keep trying it, like on your farm?
So my answer to that is the management goal that they are trying to achieve through the planting of cover crops. So many farmers will find an incentive program like Farmers for Soil Health, and because of that, they will utilize cover crops. But if their management goal is strictly financial, the likelihood that they will abandon cover crops when they no longer receive the incentive is high. Meanwhile, farmers who see themselves as sustainable or regenerative are much more likely to incorporate the planting of cover crops into their identity and continue to do so even when those failures happen. Now, Woody, I'm gonna throw it over to you. I feel like you are a data manager. You really like data and like to see numbers. And the cover crops that you plant, what are you seeing on your farm as far as the numbers coming out?
Data is good when you can manage it well. Uh, so we've got a few farms. So I'll back up. So what we do, our standard program is every single farm that I operate, I use the John Deere Operations Center, and I do some form of a trial in every single farm, whether that be some form of tillage, a in-furrow application, a 2x2 application with a planter, a side dress application, different drone applications through fungicide or foliar feeding, cover crops. Being this is my fourth crop, I have a unique perspective in the fact that I didn't grow up having dad tell me that won't work. We tried that back in the 70s. That won't work. We did this, we did that. I think things have changed a little bit in our technology and our equipment, in the environment, in our seed. Everything has changed and adapted so much over the years. And when I was in the seed industry, I was in meetings all the time, just taking in information and different concepts and different theories that I could think, well, this makes sense or it doesn't. And I didn't have the preconceived notions that I would never have the opportunity to try it. So that was one of my big things that just made sense of what does it matter if I take 40 acres and try something new? If it works, great. If it doesn't work, it was 40 acres that I learned something on that I can then move forward. Uh, I've got great partners in different suppliers and different. We started a peer group for a group of guys in my generation to try to cut that learning curve. There's a lot of opportunities out there to pay to be in a group of people that they give you information and they have structured trials. But I'm a fairly sociable person, and I have buddies all throughout the state that we get together. We have a Snapchat and a text thread to where lots of us have similar concepts and ideas that we can bounce off of each other. One of my buddies in it, he runs cover crops and he does them differently than I do them. So we can use, we're not competition. Most of us don't farm very close to each other, so we can be more open to share. I just think if we're not trying new things, we're either missing out or we're stagnating ourselves to where, we only have a finite number of acres that we're able to farm. So I owe it to the landlords, to myself, to my family to do as good of a job with what I can control on those finite acres. So that first crop that we planted that fall, I knew I wanted to do cover crops. We do strip till, we do fall strip till in our operation as much as we're able to. So we actually had a cover crop seeder on our strip till bar that is a great concept, but we couldn't make it work the way I wanted it to work. So we've evolved and done different things. I've actually introduced new pieces of equipment to try to make our cover cropping operation um, as good as it can be for what we're trying to do. So I guess I can back up to what we're doing currently into the crop we're growing right now, and then moving forward. So I bought a horse joker, which is a speed disc VT tool, whatever you will. And with our non-GMO corn, I'll usually plant 150 or so acres of a very early corn, so I can shell that corn early, dry it, store it, get it sampled and tested and everything, and I can be hauling dry corn out in September, early October, when everybody else isn't messing with it, and I'm able to get some premium opportunities with that. So what we'll do following corn, we'll go in and hit on an angle our corn stalks with that horse joker, and then we will then have the co-op broadcast cereal rye is what we've been doing. So we'll try different mixes, but just kind of the standard deal is we'll follow it with cereal rye, and whatever our dry components will be, we'll just dry broadcast on that stuff that we hit with the speed disc. We hit it pretty shallow. The goal, we run a chopping corn head as well, so we size the residue, but I want to get some dirt thrown on that residue, try to get the microbial activity going, get a better seed to soil contact potentially for that broadcasted cover crop rye, and we're at the mercy of rain at that point. But that gives us the chance to get some out early to be growing, and that's typically going to be some of our earliest planted beans will go into that. So I've got a farm that's 188 acres that is really sandy, a limestone base. We can always get on that first. So no matter what the year or the conditions, we're going to go out and we're going to plant it early, harvest it early, do whatever we're going to do. And those farms, especially the early ones, are going to be worked and cover cropped. And then I guess I'll step back. So I've adopted a deal where I really like to make sure I have a miserable summer. So I try to tissue sample every 2 weeks. So I don't do every farm, but we're in 3 different counties. So I'll try to go around and pick some, I want to say standard farms. We'll soil sample every 4 years, and I pick different farms, and I'll tissue sample every 2 weeks. Not so much to try to go out and rescue that year, but to help me build my program for the following year. So I know we're bouncing around a lot, but I guess I do my dry with cover crop in the fall, and then whatever I don't get cover cropped, we'll try to do all of the corn stalks going to beans if the fall allows it, to get it out there to where we feel like we can get value. I know there's debates on whether we have, mid-November planted cereal rye, if we'll get spring growth. But I want to get all that done in the fall, and we'll try to plant green as much as we possibly can, as long as it doesn't get away from us. I mean, we're at the mercy of the weather in pretty much everything we do. So whatever I say our plan is probably not going to happen to a T, but that's the concept going into it. So I feel like I can get in earlier in my standing rye. I feel like I like to plant beans early. And first half of April, if I can get in early April to plant beans, that cover crop, in my mind, I don't know if it's the same in theory, but I feel like we have a little bit of an insulation for the weather variability. Some might say, well, we're not going to warm up as fast, but I also say that the risk of the swings, if I get my beans planted and we get a cold front come through, I feel like we're insulated and we're protected. And this year, for example, I think I started planting beans at the first farm on like the 10th of May or 10th of April. And around the 20th, 24th, I believe it was, we got a cold rain and it got really, really cold. Guys that were working their bean ground going into it had a lot bigger issues than I did. I still do have a beautiful stand. You can see on the screen there, I think this was actually last year, but this is the farm that I planted green into. That would have been an early April planting. We got good growth, got it planted good in the fall, early enough in the fall. I feel like that gives us some weather insulation and a little bit of a protection. With the roots being down there, without having to, we fluff it up a little bit in the fall, but I'm a lot less concerned about sidewall smearing, and I can plant that probably a little wet because I have actively growing roots down there. I have copperhead closing wheels on my planter. I don't actually run any row cleaners. I've got a heavy duty double disc opener that, with working the stalks in the fall, we size that residue even more than with just the chopping corn head. I can plant into that. My copperheads seal the rows up. It's a program that I'm very, very happy that we're able to work with and learn from and grow. It's worked well for us. And then we have the ability to put in furrow or 2x2. As you can see, we run a Horsch Maestro planter, swath control on fertilizer, on seed, and on down pressure. So I can control everything from the cab and make sure that we're putting it where we need it to be and how we want it to be. And that's been a great program. The weed control. So the weed control has been a huge benefit being on 30-inch beans. The plan is obviously weather permitted. I like to plant green, and then if we can wait roughly 2-ish weeks, depending on how emergence is, and allow that cover crop to grow up more, and then we'll terminate it. And if the cover crop is actively growing, like you can see on the screen, and we can get that bean to where it's just about ready to pop through, that cover crop will lay down and create a mat. And we had like 45 days of weed control before we sprayed it with a post pass, just for the simple fact that mat, or that, whatever you call it, that mulch in between the rows, does an incredibly good job of smothering out most of the weeds. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but that gives us the opportunity to where, like this farm here specifically, will be in a single post pass herbicide application, and we get to canopy and we can save on chemistry for sure there. That's probably one of our best looking soybean crops we have this year. I talked in circles, so I'm not sure if we made where you wanted to go on that or not.
No, that was great, Woody. I'm just looking at our attendee questions. So you mentioned how you are fitting cereal rye in before soybeans. I'm curious if you're doing any cover crops before corn, and if it's just the soybeans, about what % of your land do you get covered in an average year?
So I would love to be able to do cover crops ahead of corn. My struggle with it is growing non-GMO corn. The weed control is a very major concern for what we do. It will be a test, if not this year, then next, that we're going to try either vetch or oat radish mix or some form of a mix. I'm not comfortable enough to throw another grass out ahead of corn. So what we typically do in our corn program as of today, in a quote unquote standard practice, is we will try to either, I call it dry strip. Like last year, whenever we ran our strips in the fall, I put 0 dry fertilizer down for the simple fact that I couldn't afford it. It was astronomically high priced. So I figured with the ability to do liquid, we can go in and do whatever we need to, but I put no dry down in the fall. We just made our strips. Everything's RTK. So we try to farm about what a 7-inch band is, and we're going over the stream. That's another reason that I hit it with the Joker in the fall, is to make sure that I can crunch up our root balls and plant. I'm planting straight on top of the same pass every year. So we'll strip in the fall. Either we'll put our dry on. Potash is a concern. We farm a lot of lighter, lower CEC, lower organic matter farms. So we'll put either potash, MAP. A lot of times we'll use different sulfur sources depending on whatever's available. A lot of times we'll put a Pell lime in there to kind of, if we're banding a lot of dry, I like to put a Pell lime in to kind of throw some calcium and help buffer what we're doing. We've thrown zinc sulfate. We've tried different things in the fall. My big micro pass is with the side dress bar primarily, but whatever we're doing in our fall strip, and then in the spring, and then again in the fall, depending on what we're able to do, we'll probably do a fall burn down just to try to give us some more weed control. We've got different noxious weeds that we struggle with, like everyone does. And then in the spring, we will do a pre-plant herbicide application, and I'll throw like between 20 and 25 gallons of 28 with it. And depending on what we're doing pricing wise for sulfur, we'll either put ATS with that, or if I don't put dry on in the fall, before we run anything on it, we'll throw our potash. And this year we did AMS, dry AMS with our potash. And then we then sprayed down our first pass chemistry with nitrogen. And then we actually hit it real shallow with our horse joker, what we've already stripped, which is kind of counterproductive to a lot of people. But what we're doing is we're trying to start with a smooth and clean seed bed. We're incorporating our chemistry, and we're getting a little bit of incorporation in our first nitrogen pass. And so that's one thing that Gary likes to do, is he likes to drive the 8RX. So he goes ahead of me in the planter, and we start with a smooth, clean seed bed. We're really it's not black whenever we pull out. We're just throwing a little bit more dirt on the residue and incorporating real shallow, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And then whenever I run the planter through that, we are actually in virgin soil. So we have the joker set to where it doesn't go to the bottom of the seed trench, and I can put the seed below where we're working it. So we're just starting with basically a clean slate. We've gotten better residual activity with our chemistry by doing that. And we start with just a super smooth seed bed. We do run a Henniker strip till bar. It's a shank machine. We're on 30-inch rows on everything. So it's a good machine. We're banding our dry whenever we're doing it. We're banding it at 6 to 8 inches deep, but it does leave some ridges. So whenever we smooth it out in the spring, we're still planting. Everything that we're doing is on those same strips, but we just have a smoother, more level seed bed that seems to be working well. Our chemistries work better, and we feel like we're getting a better, more even emergence having that fresh seed bed to plant into. I know it's not the purest on the strip till or no till or whatever, but just trying to get everything, just trying to make it work. But yes, I would love to plant cover crops. If I could figure out a way to do it, if we could get a cover crop out there, and we thought about doing that and then just terminating it and actually doing the same pass. But corn is not as hardy as beans. Beans seem to grow anywhere, but corn likes to be babied. So we try to do what we can on that.
And so I think that answered that question pretty well. I'm just getting on track here. And Woody, you hit on this earlier, so I think that's where this question came from. But as a first generational farmer, do you still get social pushback from other farmers on cover crops or other things that you're trying, even though you're not getting that from your parents or other, past generation farmers in your family?
Yes, from everything. So everything we do is looked at underneath a magnifying glass. The whole concept of me farming is difficult for most people to believe that someone non-family would bring in myself in this case to essentially transition their farm to. Nobody believed it would work. So it took a lot of faith and grace for the Gangwer family to provide me this opportunity. And then I come in and we're doing things a little more differently than everyone else does. And so there's been a lot of pushback. And this is, like I said, this is our fourth crop. And really just in the last year, I feel like people realize that this is a viable, feasible deal. And we've gotten some opportunities for growth. People are seeing that what we're doing, at least driving by at 60 miles an hour to them, seems to be working. I feel like with going above and beyond what a lot of people do, I think the tissue sampling has been something that's been really important for us. We've been deficient in nutrients that most farmers don't even know what they are. So, I mean, from a very early stage, we've introduced boron and molybdenum and, figuring out, I love the guys at the co-op that we work with, but they're not going to go and check everything. And, the tissue samples or the soil samples I get from them, they don't even go to the depth of a lot of what we're adding in that we do through learning through the tissues. And that's at different stages of the growth and development. So, I mean, we've changed a lot of the things that we've done, and I've been able to back down with having multiple passes. Like I said, we do 28 with our burn down pass. So that's going to be our first shot of nitrogen. And then the ability to trial and do different things in furrow is what we're kind of working towards, to try to throw more biologicals and microbial things, if you will, in furrow. And then whenever we hit a big shot with our side dress, I can throw humics, I can throw sugars, I can throw whatever micros we're trying to stimulate the microbial activity, whatever we're trying to do. We have multiple passes. So barring the 8-inch rain events, we feel like we're able to keep what we put out there where we need it to be, when we need it to be there. I'm not going to say it's fun. I mean, the weather does what the weather does, and we're at the mercy of being able to get out there when we can. And, the plan this year was we were going to trial on the screen here. I've got a drone service that I work with. It's awesome. And they will put in the drone whatever I ask them to do. And we were going to do V10 trials this year on a 2-pass fungicide and throw micro packs and different things. And our kids' county fair was last week, and V10 came and went very, very rapidly this year. So we're going to do some VT trials on that, I think is what it's going to turn into being. But yeah, it's we get a lot of pushback, but my whole life pretty much, you just can't worry about what everybody else says. You just do what you think's right. And if you take the time when you're doing it to enter what you're doing and where you're doing it, the technology that we have available is incredible. You just have to take the time to enter it into the op center or whatever you're doing. And then you have the data to be able to digest all falls. So I don't care if people think what we're doing is smart or stupid. If it works for us, that's kind of, they're probably not going to be the ones paying my mortgage. They're probably not going to be the ones buying groceries for my kids. So I care quite a small amount for whatever people worry about.
Thank you for that, Woody. And I've got 2 questions that I think we can somewhat combine. One was, can you talk about your livestock? And the next one is, do you see people grazing cover crops in your area? And I thought, based on our discussion ahead of this webinar, that we might be able to take care of both of those questions.
Yeah, great question. I would absolutely love to be able to graze cover crops. So we farm in 3 counties right now, and I don't own any acres that we row crop farm. So a lot of the farms in our area, as people got out of raising livestock. So we're in an area where there's a few people will have, cows, not in any scope, but we're in a very large commercial hog production area. There are quad hog barns, 4,000 head units. You can't drive very far without seeing some of them. So the first thing people do whenever, grandpa dies or grandma, whatever, is they tear out all the fences. So I don't think we have any farms that have any fences. And in the fall, we have a fairly small harvest crew, so I don't have the ability to go out and build temp fence and be able to graze the cover crops like I would like to do. I don't know of anybody. There's very, very little cover crop grazing in our area. First of all, there's not a lot of cows or there's not a lot of that done to begin with, let alone to graze the cover crops. So I would love to, with our ag supply business. We don't have a lot of time in the summer. So a concept that I would love to do would be, we just grow corn and beans now. I would like to get to a point where we could grow wheat and then plant an earlier cover crop with Sudan or teff or whatever form of a blend, and then be able to graze that, let that grow up in the fall and graze that. I think that would be an excellent way to do it. I think the soil health benefits would be astronomical. We're just not set up to have the opportunity to do that today. So the livestock operation, where I live here, we have roughly 100 acres, all fenced and cross fenced. So I won't say we're the best at it, but rotational grazing is a practice that I love. Just being able to do it right and well. The water infrastructure is a challenge. My time is the biggest limiting factor, that I don't have the ability to do everything I want to do. My wife and I talk all the time that we need to hire more help, but it's a challenge to, we're diversified enough to find somebody that would be good at multiple facets it's just a challenge. So we're limited by our time and our labor. I love the concept. Hopefully one day we'll be able to rotationally graze our cover crops. I think the benefits would be huge. Actually, I know they will. I've, just in the rotational grazing we do on our pasture ground, it's the way to do it if a guy's able to devote the time to do it. We do make, that's what we're doing right now, is we make hay on a lot of rented farms. Most of it around here is people that have, a 20 acre or less field or farm that they don't want row cropped. Then we'll go in there and make the hay and either pay a cash rent or make it on shares or however. So we do produce plenty of hay for what we need to feed in the wintertime. The cows that right now we're running, we did the show cattle for several years. I'm a lot more busy in the fall now than I was before we started, when I needed to be selling show calves. So with the cattle market being extraordinary, we've just been selling feeder calves in the fall. I moved our calving window back to where we calve, in the woods and on the grass in April and May, trying to get closer to that, the window that we need to be calving in. And the goats are a very high management venture, but we tie up all of our buildings with having the show goats be born in the November, December timeframe, and we market them before we get into the field. So we got into the goats, I don't know how I should say, through our feed store. We had somebody that was having a hard time paying their feed bill, and so the first buck that we raised, we named Repo Man. So I actually, we got some goats in form of payment. And I told my wife, growing up, I made fun of goat people being a cattle person. So if we were going to have goats, they needed to be pretty good. So then we kind of, we started focusing on that. I was at the North American Simmental show and was walking through a goat barn to visit a customer that we had down there. And a girl I worked with on the seed side was there. So I talked to her and she introduced me to her boyfriend, and we hit it off, and we became good buddies. And Jordan Fletterjohn was his name, from Ohio. And so I leased a buck from him that year, and I bought roughly 20 goats or so at that time. And we started breeding them, and then we've evolved into artificial insemination and flushing and all of the things that you spend way too much money on that usually doesn't work near as well as you think it will. but you get that one that does well, then it's kind of addictive. So that's our, that, and then the show pigs. We've got a joint venture with another family that we've got 30 or 40 sows, and we're split between two places, and it's more of a marketing partnership. But we're able to, we're in the show world with Prairie View and the Ag Supply deals. So the show side is kind of a standalone deal from the farming operation. I would like for them to be more, but so from my driveway where all the livestock are right now to the driveway of the row crop farm is like 16 minutes to drive from there. So, and we've got ground in 3 different counties that we farm. I would love to be able to integrate it all together more, but I just don't have the capacity to do it today.
Understand. And Woody, we are running up on time here, but I've got one more attendee question and then another question for us. So Woody, if you could answer quickly. For your rotational grazing, you mentioned cross fencing about 100 acres. About how many cattle do you have per acre or acres per paddock? What's your math on that?
I don't do math on that. So the cross fences basically are going to be they're permanent cross fences, and then what we'll do is we'll take out just like temporary fence posts, and I'll break, like I've got a 20-acre paddock that I'll take just temp fence and put up and put it into smaller sections, and then as the cattle do what they're supposed to do, then we can adjust every day. So we just put rolls of wire up as needed to make paddock sizes based off of the weather and the stage of the cattle. So I mean, we've broken down into half acre sections. We've done smaller than that, just based on the amount of time that we want to keep the cattle there and what they're eating and tromping down. And the rotational grazing is very much an art, not a science, in my opinion.
Sorry, I couldn't come off mute there for a second. So now I've got a little bit for both of you here as we conclude our discussion today. How can advisors and farmers work together? How do advisors and farmers work together to make short-term and long-term decisions?
I guess I'll go first since I'm not on mute unless Hans wants to.
Go ahead.
So I think the Farmers for Soil Health specifically is an excellent resource, and Hans has done a great job. So I saw the marketing for it. I've not done any government programs with cover crops. I didn't like how they were structured. I didn't like, I don't like somebody telling me what to do and how to do it. Whereas I saw the Farmers for Soil Health, and I reached out, and Hans and I had a great talk before I even signed up, is I want to be able to do it without you, because you don't know how my ground is, and I don't know how yours is. So for me to be able to try different rates, try different products, the Farmers for Soil Health program to me is a no-brainer, because it allows me the flexibility to try what I feel like should work at different ways, and we still have the opportunity for support without the chains that bind us, if you will. So this is the first and only program that I've done on the cover crop or the rigid. I don't do any of those. I foot the bill for everything myself, just because I feel like if I'm going to learn, I need to learn. There's data out there for guidelines, but I don't want to rely on somebody else telling me how to do it. And with talking with Hans, we talked through the program, and this is the first and only thing I've seen that makes sense to support us to learn and grow without having multi-year guarantees and just the parameters that are so restrictive that they're just not functional in my mindset. So I think it's a great program. I'm very happy to be able to grow what we're doing now. We've done some Certain years we've done smaller trials, but this year we're going to do a significantly larger percentage of our. The goal is to cover all of our corn ground going to beans with cover crop this year, and a few farms from beans going to corn through this program supporting it.
And Shannon, to answer your question from my perspective as a technical assistance provider, you and Olivia and Odine asked me to find a farmer to do this webinar, and I thought to myself, okay, who's intelligent, eloquent, fairly unique, but most importantly, going to take up a majority of the time so that I don't have to speak that much. And I think we've successfully accomplished that today. So I feel as a technical assistant specialist that I have played my role well.
Perfect. Thank you. And now I think Olivia will come on and wrap up our webinar today. Thank you both.
You bet. Thanks, Hans. Thanks, Woody. And at the end, Hans, I heard that we need to have a webinar featuring just you because you have a wealth of knowledge to share. So we might circle back around to that. Yes, thank you all for joining us today. It's been a wonderful conversation. We truly appreciate Woody and Hans taking the time out of your busy day to share your insights. Be sure to check out Farmers for Soil Health. You can learn more at farmersforsoilhealth.com. A short Zoom survey will appear as the webinar concludes. We'd greatly appreciate your feedback. For certified crop advisors and certified professional soil scientists seeking a CEU credit, now is a good time to open the CCA app and select Scan Course Code. Prepare to scan the QR code here in just a minute. For all of our upcoming opportunities, we'll share the registration links in the chat today. If you missed them, don't worry. A follow-up email will be sent in the next week or so to everyone who registered for the webinar with a link to the webinar recording, registration links for all upcoming opportunities, and any additional resources. And then looking ahead to August, we're partnering with One Good Idea to host this summer's Good Idea Shop Talks on August 6th, 13th, and 20th. During these virtual meetups, you'll hear challenges that fellow farmers are facing, as well as how other farmers have overcome them. And then if we could go to that next slide. We also have a farmer-to-farmer discussion coming up on August 26th at 11 a.m. Central. It will feature producers Steve Krzyzewski from Maryland, as well as Monty Boddens from Illinois, who will share their lessons learned from implementing cover crops on their operations. And again, please keep an eye out for that follow-up email with the webinar recording, links to register for these upcoming opportunities, as well as additional resources. And we can go to the next slide. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out using the contact information on the screen. Shannon, Odine, and myself, we're happy to help you. And we can go to the next slide. And for those seeking CCA credit, you can scan the QR code now using the CCA app or email Shannon using the contact information on the screen or also in the chat. And that's probably good, Odine, if you want to pop up that last slide real quick. And we'll call it a wrap. Thanks, everyone.